Okay. I'm chair of the Environmental Management Commission, and we are opening our July 27, 2022 meeting at 9:01 a.m. We are doing this via Zoom, and John Olson, are you sitting there in Peter's office?
Well, we're in one of the conference rooms.
Okay, conference room in Hilo. But Zoom is our friend so that we can get together as many people as possible. For today's meeting, unfortunately, we're going to have 3 commissioners out. Means if any of those who are present, the 5 of us commissioners, need to go to the bathroom, we need to suspend the meeting until you get back on camera. So if you need to leave early, just let us know, because we'll lose quorum at that point. So I'll go through the roll call, if I may. John Burns from District 1 is out scouting on the reef looking for survival. District 2, Elise Robinson. Wave, Elise. We have a vacancy for District 3, Hilo area, and if anybody knows anyone over there who might be interested in joining the commission, tell them to submit their application. District 4 is John Olson, who's gone to Hilo for the meeting in person. Cardwell is also out today. District 6, Lee McIntosh is here. Thank you, Lee. Dee Fulton from District 7 is also out today. And District 8, Rick Gaffney is there. Thank you, Rick. And myself, Georgine Adams, representing District 9. We also have Kara Wong, our Commission Corporate Counsel, on Zoom. So again, just if anybody's got to leave, give us heads up because of the dance. In the meantime, the meeting is off to a rocky start because our first order of business is the approval of our minutes. And as you saw from the agenda, we have 4 batches of minutes, 3 of which we will not be able to do once again because we do not have a quorum of the people who attended those meetings related to the Kayala Partners hearing. So we'll put it on the agenda for next time. But we do have the June 22nd, 2022 minutes. Could I get a motion to accept?
So moved.
John, second.
Second.
Are there any comments, corrections to be made in the minutes? Hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor, say of adopting the minutes, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Got everybody unanimous. Thank you very much. Statement from the chair. Meh. Happy summer. I hope everybody's having. There's a lot going on, and fortunately this time we have a written report from our director, Ramsey Mansour, as well as some oral descriptions he's going to be giving. Fortunately, we do record these meetings, so those commissioners who can't make it hope good information about where DEM is and where the cesspool conversion project is. So it's probably going to be a lot of informational focus for this meeting. as opposed to specific action items. But if anybody's got any, we have a quorum, so we can move forward on them. The next agenda item are public statements from the public. I understand Jerome Warren, excuse me, is present and is interested in making public comment. Is there anyone else? Not hearing so. So Mr. Warren, do you want to give your comment now, or would you prefer to wait until we get to the specific agenda item?
I would like to testify now.
Okay, great. Proceed.
So,
And speak up.
ready?
Yeah,
Okay,
speak up.
okay, I am testifying about item Roman numeral 7, B1, Ala and Naalehu AOC. Here we go. General Administrative Order of Consent states that the County of Hawaii is operating an illegal sewer system in Naalehu, the gang cesspool. Yet Naalehu homeowners are forced to pay a sewer bill to the county. Extortion is of no concern to the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. Extortion is of no concern either to the Hawaii State Department of Health. Our sewer in Naalehu is not licensed by the DOH, yet homeowners must pay their sewer bill or the state court will find them guilty. The DOH and the EPA will not attend the upcoming Naalehu. Elephant in the room will be that sewer bill. It comes in our mailbox every 2 months. So please tell the public what legal grounds the county has to charge Naalehu homeowners for their illegal gang cesspool. Hello.
Was that a mahalo at the end there, Jerry?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
You're
I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, and appreciate your dedication to issues there. I don't believe we have any other public commenters at this time. So we will move on to unfinished business. And if anyone has any progress reports to make on their individual commissioners' priorities, welcome you to give us a brief update. And looking at Rick Gaffney and hoping that he's going to raise his hand.
Yes, I will give you an update. The project that I've been focused on for a while is the sewering of Honokahau Harbor. And as I've stated before, we got a commitment from the legislature for dollars to do that. However, the problem continues to be that there is no pipe connecting Kealakehe Parkway to the wastewater treatment plant. So even if we sewer it, we can't get there. And so we proposed to the state that they should pay to install the necessary pipe from Honokahau to the treatment plant and an R1 water line back, because Honokahau needs the R1 water for landscaping. And of course, the county is positively disposed to that. The director would love to see that. However, that raises all kinds of questions. And the first thing it did was make the deal on our back off and say, why are we paying for this? And then secondly, Shifty got involved and threw a wrench into the works with regard to the North Kona. And so we've organized a meeting between a half a dozen DLNR types, all the senior management in the boating program, DLNR's engineers, DLNR's top managers, with the same contingent from Ramsey's staff so that we can talk through some of these problems. And the reason for that long buildup to that point is that I want to make a point to the other commissioners that oftentimes what it takes is working outside the box and coming up with, or basically forcing all of the bureaucrats in the process to sit down and talk to each other, because they don't normally pick up the phone and do that. So this meeting will be held the first week in August, and I'll report results of that are. But the other reason that I'm bringing it up is to point out that some of the things that we would like to see done are extraordinarily complicated. In many cases by bureaucracy, lack of money, issues with Department of Health, SHPD, as I said, DLNR, State Historic Preservations Division, and so forth. So while some things may appear to be really easy on the surface, they're not. And then one of the reasons that things take as long as they do. The other thing that's come out as a result of pursuing this process is the reality that there are not many sewers in West Hawaii. I was actually shocked to see on Ramsey's office wall, he's got a huge printout of all of the sewers that currently exist in West Hawaii. And it makes you want to shake your head like John is right now, because it's really sad. And part of the problem also is that if I wanted to put in a 100-unit subdivision somewhere near the sewer line, it would be not only, but it would also be my responsibility to look at the current county infrastructure and make an engineering determination as to whether or not that infrastructure is capable of carrying the sewage that my 100-lot subdivision would produce. So that's another thing that stands in the way. And if you're following it in the news, there's a 65-house subdivision being proposed in West Hawaii. And any more than 50 has to look at sewerage. But in the case of the 65-lot subdivision, it's unclear whether or not the current sewer system is even going to be able to handle that much. So bottom line is, it's what we are about is extremely complicated. However, I think by persevering and with division and providing out-of-the-box considerations, we might be able to get things done. And just for the record, publicly, I'm in the process now of recommending to the state that if they're not willing to put in the pipe to the treatment plant, that they put in their own treatment plant at Honokahau Harbor and complete the sewering that way, possibly with a leased plant that then produces our for the return to the irrigation system. So sorry for the long report, but I think it's all stuff you guys need to know.
I appreciate it, Rick. As you may recall, and in fact, for a couple of weeks, sending a letter from EMC to the various parties supporting doing that connection was on our agenda. But then Rick managed to line up this meeting, and I think that is fabulous. And certainly we need to hear what comes of it and what kind of recommendations comes out of that meeting for what can the EMC do to assist in moving that along. I think we may also come back to some of the issues of expanding our sewer infrastructure when we get to the cesspool conversion discussion item. Are there any other that commissioners may want to bring up? Okay. I did, on behalf of District 9, attend a session a Zoom that describes some of the data collection that's been done by a consortium working with the UH on water quality coming out of various homes and systems in Puaco, which has septic and cesspools. And it was a most depressing set of data. And they need to figure out how to hook up with a sewer system, whether it's private or the county. And the biggest concern is Puaco is sitting on a bunch of cracked up lava. And the stuff goes into the cesspools and even into septic and then goes straight into the ocean. There isn't enough time for treatment to occur naturally, if you want to call septic and cesspool natural. It's just the ocean. And the frustrating thing is for an area like Puaco, which has a mixed demographic of rich peoples and not so rich peoples, no one's really eager to go and pay for putting in their own wastewater treatment or paying for sewer connection. And so there's still a lot of discussion and frustration by the population there. And again, that makes, you know, the cesspool conversion project a worthy topic for us to try and figure out. So what can we and DEM do to assist us? And I think Ramsey will also be talking on the legislative update of there was some movement by the state legislature to come up with some solutions, and we'll see how those work out. Moving on then on items left over from last meeting. Again, I want to leave it here, but I don't have any particular new information on this. The commission have come up with some great ideas. We were going to talk about, are there things in the current codes that we need to look at changing, updating, expanding? That is item Roman numeral 5.2.1. And if there's anything anyone brainstormed, I personally am going to try and sit down with Ramsey and some of his people to better understand the hodgepodge of requirements that apply to sewering, and it's not straightforward, put it that way. Item 2 under that is yes, Rick.
Yeah, I just wanted to put it on the table. We've talked about it before. Gray water is currently not allowed under the code. Gray water systems, and gray water systems are used in other counties across the country. They are allowed. Things that homeowners need to be highly cognizant of what the kinds of cleaning materials and so forth that they use if they have a gray water system. But it is a way to reduce the amount of water, both that goes into a cesspool or a septic system or that goes into a sewer. So I think it needs to be discussed.
I think or at least I hope Ramsey might bring that up. That is one of the recommendations being discussed by the cesspool conversion work group as to how to make the ability to use slightly gray water as opposed to really gray water for reuse in your home. So hopefully we'll get to that, but very good point. I mean, try reuse. The pyramid is don't use it in the first place, reuse it as much as you can. Talk about heavy duty treatment and recycle. So the next item was on, or anybody else had a comment?
Well, if I may,
John.
having been at this since day one, going back way, that the initial roadblock, I think it still is the money issue. And the fact that the state has been unwilling to create the revolving funds to support this. And that's pretty much the bottom line. Show me the money. Anything is possible if you get the money. And the state has, as the protector of the water resource, it's at their end. That's where it starts and that's where it ends. So we have to, again, figure out how we get them to engage on this. And I think that the fact that we have drawn the attention of the EPA again to our problems on this island, it would be a good time to remind them of that and see what support we can get from the broader community.
Well, again, financing is a major component. Cesspool conversion work group. And if you had a chance to read the current report and latest recommendations, and we'll have Ramsey hopefully discuss a little bit of that, because it's bigger than just DEM issues. It's DOH, it's county and state government-wide issues of resource allocation. But yeah, it always comes down to money. You can accomplish, you can go to the moon, you can go to Mars if you have enough money. Elise, Lee, anything? Lee?
I don't know if it's been codified yet, but I was gonna recommend changing the trailer size from 6x9 to 5x10. Because actually 5x10 is smaller area wise and 9x6, so it should be okay.
Ramsey, I think we'll maybe get to that when you do your report on the solid waste updates on where that code change stands for the transfer stations. Unless you want to address it now.
I guess we could give update as we go into the solid waste. Of it, because look at each side nation plan on maneuvering with a trailer, and maybe we could give him the option to run multiple size trailers to see how the maneuvering may play at each site. So
Okay. Sounds like an option. Again, moving to the item on the agenda of Roman numeral 5.2.2 wastewater pretreatment code draft. As I understand, you're still not ready to. Ramsey?
that's correct. I think you guys probably got an email from Malia. We cannot share the draft at this moment for that pre-treatment.
Okay, I'm gonna just let it ride on the agenda, and every month we'll bring it up as a reminder that we care. Third item is a kind of a circle back to some of the issues that we identified during the Kiowa Partners appeal. And if anybody had about how to address some of the confusion and maybe misdirection that exists currently in how we manage residential sewer charges. That's what that item's for. Lee,
I had a simple thought, idea is they could change the format of the bill to match those of like cell phones where it's all broken down, the charges. So it would be clear that, it would be abundantly clear that there are two charges rather than one, because the water, is it water bill or sewer bill? I don't remember. Oh, maybe it's a different department. Anyways, I think it was a sewer bill, I was looking at the bill. I'd never seen one before, and I couldn't see anywhere where it said that it was two sewer charges. But then when the department highlighted the number and showed where it said, then I said, oh, there it is. But if you had never seen one before, it wasn't very clear, wasn't abundantly clear. And I think that would be the most simplest thing to do, to just
that's an
prevent
administrative
this.
change and not rulemaking, so that would definitely be the simplest thing to
Something
do.
they could do immediately that would be, I would think, cheap.
Sounds good. I also think it's a water bill. So it'd be the water supply, whatever direction the letters go, department that sends those bills out, but certainly clarifying and making them. And sounds like a good idea. So I'm not sure who we pass that on to, Ramsey.
Yeah, as we do the, we have so many things that's gonna impact our chapter 21, the code change. We have the cesspools coming up. We work on the committee eventually. Whatever is gonna be recommended to legislators and Department of Health, that's gonna have an impact on our current code. On the pre-treatment, which also is gonna have an impact on our code. So when it comes to you for review, once we get the clearance from our council to say, okay, now maybe you could share it and get comments. Definitely, I welcome that you guys redline everything in that code. And if we need to clarify, modify things, that probably would be the time.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot easier for us rather than trying to come up with some major changes. But I think what Lee was an administrative paperwork change that whoever sends out the water bills, just to break it down so you understand what it is you're being billed for. Like
The water bill is the Department of Water Supply. If you're talking about the sewer bills.
sewer bill, yeah.
That's our department, and then we could run it by our business man. Probably they use in program that's set up that way, but we could run it by them, see if the sewer bill could be modified. But I thought it was clear as we submitted the evidence that you have 2 times the charge, but the water bill, that was the one we had hard time with, because if we talk to the water department, it's on the address that the property owner gives the department. So if you give them your address, and even on the mainland, they're gonna bill you based on that address. So addresses does not constitute that or has any relationship to the water bill.
Yeah.
So because you could get any address given to them. So
I think that's less a code issue change, as again, trying to think, are there some ways to just simplify and clarify how people see the bills and whether or not it's clear enough to them. And I apologize, I don't remember all the details of that case, whether there are 2 bills. I live in an apartment building, so I don't see the bills, period.
yeah, I think you're right, we need to modify, as you guys get in the code also, we need, the commercial, the discussion came about the volume usage of the water. That's a good thing versus, that standard $45. But anyway, so we need to figure a way to figure out, if a house takes 12 people versus one house that take 2 people or one person is a big difference. So, and maybe it could be related to number of gallons used. And commercial versus residential. Unfortunately, I was driving toward LE Drive. Look at that Larry Smith subdivision as I was driving there. Hawaii Tour Adventure Tour were coming out of the same property that we discussed. And I guess it's probably listed commercial because they doing tour to that property. So we need to look at it again, because if it's commercial, it needs to be built commercial, not residential.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of people, it's funny because there's a stop sign, so I had to stop, let the people cross the street. And it was Hawaii Adventure Tour was taking about 20, 30 people into that house for tour. So it's been running as commercial. So yeah. So we need to be able to also point out, sometimes we don't have the people to go do inspection, unfortunately, but sometimes people.
Well, it kind of moves to our item number 4 about enforcement, that I don't want to go to just yet. But yeah, I'm just checking out. There are people who do innovative things with their property. It's impossible for any agency to try to keep up with. But what you want to make sure you have clear rules, people know what the rules, they can find the rules, so that at least it makes it harder for them to argue that, oh, I didn't know that, when they do get caught. One of the questions that just puzzled me was back to the wonderful unoccupied unit concept, where you had to have a water bill for the unoccupied unit. And I wasn't sure where that came from or whether that was appropriate. What if you had catchment and you didn't have a water bill, but you had plenty of water that you were using to flush your toilets and run your washing machine, et cetera, et cetera? Was it just because there was a bill that you could attach a sewer bill to? Any clue, anybody? John, you know everything about the history.
You really want to hear it? How much time do you have?
No,
Get
I don't want to hear it.
Get comfortable. I can give you 30 years of it. That's you. Welcome to Puna. Sewer, what does that look like? We don't have any sewers. I mean, for all intents and purposes, to simplify this, Puna is actually in no way, shape, or form connected to the county of Hawaii. We are connected only by a state highway. That's the only connection that we have to Hawaii County as a district.
Yeah.
Is a state highway. So we don't have sewer systems. We don't, the water systems are private where they exist. There is water, that county water, that goes to Keau and goes to Pahoa. That's county water. And that's the total of it.
I was their frustrations about I was talking about the issue of we chose occupied units that get a water bill if they're connected to the water bill. Is that the key element, or is it really you're trying to get a surrogate for, yes, there is water that gets flushed or can be flushed down that connection to the sewer.
I don't know the logistic of how this came about, but just asking people around, my understanding is at one point they were gonna tie the water bill to the sewer and for charges. And also, the water bill, usually if it's unoccupied, you receive a water bill. It was just for the sewer area, the people that, and, you know, get sewer service, not everybody. So if you get a water catchment and you don't have a sewer, obviously when you get a catchment, you probably don't have a sewer system extended to yours, because usually even in Hilo or here, so like Rick said earlier, our sewer collection is so limited. When you look at the sewer plant, we got so many cesspools and septic tanks. These people are not impacted. So we only talking about the people that actually get a sewer line running in front of their house. And I think it was written also to make, you know, people gonna either connect or they're gonna be charged. Because a lot of people now being charged, but probably not connected. So it's because they don't want to go through the cost of doing the connection. So, you know, I would imagine the way the code was written back then is charge them anyway, because they got a sewer line going through their property or in front of their property.
Well, unfortunately, I think it's a bigger issue overall on how do we charge to cover our sewer system and grow our sewer system where it needs to be. And maybe we'll get a little bit into that when we hit the cesspool conversion activity. But I think for us to be able to move on the set of 3 topics under this is to get your draft changes, and then we can go through and have something that we can comment on specifically. Otherwise, I think you're talking about a whole new approach to how to manage paying for and dealing with the services provided by DEM. So if I can, I'll move on to number 4, which was our discussion about enforcing unsecured loads at DEM disposal facilities. I did get a response from the police department on their citations that they've given. And they had some data from late 2018 to now. They've given out 15 citations for uncovered loads on the road. And did I say 15? 15, and then another 16 citations for littering. So stuff just flying around, or they caught you throwing it out the door. So some, but not a lot. And I don't believe any of those came by way of a forward from DEM. As I recall from last time, Ramsey was saying that at the landfill, they will talk to, and maybe give something written, but at least talk to people who are coming in without a secured load, a cover over their loads. But frankly, at the transfer stations, there just isn't the staff and the time, the capability to chase everybody who comes into a transfer station. And, you know, the never-ending issue of lack of staff. So again, I don't know if there's anything specific that the EMC would recommend for trying to educate people on the importance of securing their trailers, the back of their pickup truck, before when they're going to be going to a transfer station. To think about the fact that, yeah, something's likely to fly out, make a mess, and these poor volunteers are the ones who are going to be cleaning up the highway, and that's not the way we want. But DEM doesn't deal with the littering out on the road. They deal with the facilities, the transfer stations and landfill.
Georgina?
Yeah.
I went to coffee with a cop to learn more about this situation. And what I learned was interesting. That is that at least for commercial vehicles that are hauling anything to a landfill and have stuff blowing out of the truck, the police officer I spoke to said that sometimes they only give warnings because the operators of these trucks have commercial licenses. And if they get a citation, they can lose their commercial license and therefore their livelihood. So the police department, in his estimation anyway, is sometimes loath to cite somebody because they don't want to put them out of business. This does not apply, of course, to homeowners, but it certainly contributes because I've certainly had the experience of following a commercial truck that had stuff blowing out of it. And part of the problem, of course, is that if they all know that the police aren't going to cite them because they're good guys and don't want to put them out of business, then they're going to continue to do this. And the police officer I was speaking to intimated that that's actually the fact, that there is a known hauler on this island who regularly does not secure his load properly, does not close the truck up properly, regularly has stuff blowing out of it. So anyway, it was an interesting conversation, and I learned more about the process. So, and of course, the other thing that I think is important in this conversation is that green waste is different than trash blowing out of a vehicle. Green waste is really not causing an environmental issue. It's still hazardous to other drivers. It's still a problem. It's still messy. But realistically, it's other kinds of trash that are more important, at least in my perspective, than green waste rotting on the side of the road.
Well, maybe when that mythical public information officer is hired, it becomes part of the messages that get given out to the public on why it's important to make sure you're not losing stuff out the back when you're going to a transfer station. We do have a point of communication at the transfer station, and signage and staff messages are definitely sorely needed for transfer stations. And so I think we need to keep that up on the priority list, as we did in what we gave to Ramsey.
Well,
Other
Yes, I-
comments,
yeah,
John?
I mean, again, on the Puna side, we have all of these subdivisions out there with thousands and thousands and thousands of available TMKs. Not one of them has a transfer station within its meets and bounds. You have to take it out on the highway. You have no choice. So now that Puna has become the most populous district on the island, according to the census, I think we're going to have some discussion about the level of service. And I don't, I can't speak to the other districts, but I think, again, making it realistic, the subdivisions and the way they were set up, the county did not mandate that they include transfer stations in the developments. So that was poor thinking from the get-go. We will have that discussion.
Okay, I've got it down. Maybe we can talk about it at our next meeting on, again, it's how to provide the service points or require, especially developments, to do that. And that's not necessarily something DEM can do but it may be something to go to council
Yeah.
and recommend that needs to be part of the permitting process, if you will.
I mean, the county did require the subdivisions to set aside property for public use in the future, but there's been no action taken on it as build out is continued. The need is developed and the land is there. It's been set aside. But there's been no action taken on it. And so I'm already having some discussion with my council person about talking about that.
Well, I'll work with you and we'll get that on the agenda for next time, if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I'd like to close out unfinished business and move to new business, and that is the cesspool conversion working group. And Ramsey could go on forever talking about all the complicated factors there that they are trying to go through to come up with final recommendations. But there has been interest by several of you in talking about what's going on with that cesspool conversion. Obviously, it's a big issue for our island. And what I would like to do is have Ramsey try to hit the high points. Again, caution you, I don't want to get into the weeds of things that are really DOH issues. It's okay, we've got DEM, they do sewers and they do wastewater treatment. How does that compost conversion impact DEM? So take it away, Ramsey.
Thank you, Georgianne. Yeah, this is really, like Georgianne mentioned, everything we deal with, it's so complex, which it shouldn't be complex, but unfortunately, it been building up over the last 20, 30 years. So we got to deal what we have been dealt with. Cesspools, as you all know, there's 55,000 here on the island alone. Total cesspools within the state is about 88,000. So more than half of it we have within our county. So the idea is, how these conversions could take place prior to 2050. Cesspools, septic tanks, wastewater permits, all is controlled by the Department of Health, not the county. You guys probably already know that. So it's really the state that set up that committee to figure out what's the best way to assist the county's constituents and residents to be able to convert by the due date, which is the 2050. So out of that cesspool committee, there's some recommendations that is going to be submitted to the Department of Health and to our legislators. The recommendation is going to cover the cesspool conversion financing aspect of the report, how the funding is going to take place, how things are going to be converted. There was a talk about maybe start charging maybe $10 a month, plus or minus. They don't know the dollar figure, but the idea is start charging these homeowners $1 so that it could go to a basket that we get. The county will have enough maybe to expand the infrastructure and connect these homes. So, continuing. So if you guys have a recommendation of cesspool conversion or funding, could, next committee as well. The other is the rulemaking, how to go implement. So one of them is rules to dispose gray water when non-flushing toilets are used in a home. So if we're gonna have the Cinderella toilet, then, the electric toilet or composting toilets, then you're not using black water. So why that shower water and other water cannot just be used for landscaping? I'm sure a lot of people that live off the grid, they doing that anyway.
Mhm.
They using it for their garden and other stuff. So, some of the other recommendation is, kind of research and nutrient reduction rules for kitchen sink disposal water. Evaluate and streamline regulatory framework. Look at HAR 1162 and see what we could modify within that code. Maybe create a grant threshold criteria for use by the Department of Health to evaluate and measure pollution. Require developments to build connections within, currently we have our subdivision allow within 300 feet. I think we need to change that, where if you are within a service area, you must connect. But unfortunately, 300 feet, people get away with butt-in septic or cesspool. And then next thing you know, they're gonna stay on it for another 50 years. So that's why we don't see too many people connecting to our sewer, because it's the cost of them connecting. And if you already got a septic, you're in compliance with Department of Health. So why spend the money to connect? So it's a catch-22. It's like we said, it's a complex equation, but unfortunately, we have more cesspool and septic tanks than connections at this moment. So yeah, so if you guys have also any recommendation under the cesspool conversion rulemaking, please shoot them to me as well. I could add them to the next committee discussion. Other recommendation is the public outreach, how we need to educate the public that, convert by this due date. The idea, could we connection to private? So I've been pushing, we cannot just continue depending on municipality connection. We have to, especially on an island like ours, there's so many decentralized area and so many private wastewater, every resort, every subdivision nowadays, if they're not going to be connecting, they're going to have their package treatment unit. So yeah, if you're not going to connect, the Department of Health is going to require you to have your own treatment facility. So if you're going to have your own treatment facility, it might as well allow other adjacent neighbors to connect. So maximize and become more efficient as we start implementing these conversion. So other recommendation was the timeline. People will have a tendency to wait till the last minute and not be able to do conversion, and now everybody will be in violation. So is the Department of Health staff enough to start finding every individual, every homeowner? So some of that need to be discussed. They talked about maybe the point of sale. They talked about, how could we set priorities so we could accelerate the process and break it down to allow people by 2030 must convert, by 2040, the second priority must convert. So they look at about how they could package these 88,000 conversion so they don't blow up at the 11:59 and the last minute and figure out, oh my God, now none of them are in compliance. So that's hard because it's not a entity, it's an individual. So it's going to be challenging to the Department of Health to try to track down and figure out
People.
how they're going to find it and how they're going to implement it. So it's a challenge. So if you guys have also recommendation about timeline, please shoot them to me as well. One of the other recommendation is program, allow cesspool conversion program administration. So recommend each county to put together a cesspool replacement master plan and recommend that each county should have a master waste water plan, which is the one we've been talking about, the integrated wastewater management plan. So these are the recommendation that also is going to be submitted from an administrative point of view, how counties could assist the state to become more cohesive. We all need to be on the same page when it comes to that. Each counties seem like they run with their own program. Some counties have master plans, some counties don't. And so it'll be good if some of these recommendations go through. The last recommendation is cesspool conversion workforce development. So they're talking about, maybe require county planning department to report to the Department of Health designated agent conversion, because these conversion this can play. So maybe between other Department of Health and expedites. Look at, to make sure even it can connect or to future. If you think there's a subdivision coming up near area of conversion, plan it better. So allow start putting dry sewer to start into the development and just you can walk away with it. Now you within an island, a septic tank, and if the cesspool converted to sewer, you're not going to be able to force the people in septic tank to connect because there's no infrastructure in there. So it's complicated. I'm gonna keep using that word because it is. It's from planning issue to finance. Just get people trying to accept change and get into the wagon and start moving forward with a better planning and bring them to better treatment facility rather than just being scattered everywhere. So these discussions that have been taking place within the committee itself, it's very dynamic, it moves fast, but at the end of the recommendation, so yeah, definitely I recommend that you guys as an advisory committee, I gave you the number of recommendation impact. So please, if you to any concern or item to these recommendations I just went through, please shoot them to Peter so we could next committee meeting I could modify or request modification comments. At least the other committee members and counties could discuss it as well. So that's Georgianne for the cesspools updates.
Could I ask a question, Ramsey? In terms of what your alternatives are, if you have a cesspool or a crummy old septic that's not working right, are there priorities for which technologies given to sewer system with a wastewater treatment plant as your first option as opposed to the last option?
Well, our goal of the committee is not to provide technical options because we cannot select one vendor versus other. So that's really up to their engineer that they're gonna hire to do the permeability testing and others to recommend. But from a priority point of view, any properties within the shorelines, yes, definitely, you cannot use septic because it's gonna leach back into the water. So they're gonna look at probably treatment units and it removes all nutrients. So anything near groundwater will be subject to the same requirement. But if you, in an area that you don't have any groundwater impact or shoreline impact, then a septic tank is adequate.
Push, if there is a sewer system by accessible at rather
Yeah,
than.
oh, yeah, definitely. If you are our subject,
Are we the only ones who break it?
you have to connect. So the Department of Health is working on maybe if you are within service area, you must connect. So there is discussion about, but it's county by county. So I know city and county, they require, even if you 2 miles, these developers need to connect. And sewer line, the developers need to bring it into the to the connection point because they're the one who's doing the development. They need to, and they could recoup that cost from the property they sell, but yet also they get reimbursement from the county or city and county every time somebody else connect to their sewer. So eventually they get that. But that's the whole concept is, developers and you are with sewer in the service area. Sewer connection could be turn up the roads within the subdivisions. And or treatment plan if you within reason.
Done here on Hawaii?
Fortunately, no, because we have the.
So is that and what, change it to what?
It's a plan item. It's not a. So we need to. Department. Area. I was digging into our old. I was not aware that 6.
Good.
Our department, the master plan for the Kailua corner. So they identified service area with the boundaries of what boundary that's going to feed into that treatment plan. And Rake the Harbor was part of that master plan. It shows DLNR was going to bring the sewer line all the way to the because it's their facility and they showed it in different colors. So, and that was in 2006. When 2022, nothing has been done.
Right.
So there was a lot of thoughts went into that master plan for Kailua Kona in 2006. So I'm gonna try to, I asked my division chief to dust it off and bring it back to life. And if we need to concept, we have the benchmark to work with. So we need to start working on updating because it is outdated. So we need to bring it up to date. But yeah, when you go back to that so many years and read and say, gee, you know, everybody was supposed to connect. Why they haven't connected? But yeah, so that's the work. If we get everybody supposed to do their own tasks and duties and not depend on the county, because everybody thinks, well, we wait on the county, but it's really not the county's kuleana to get in there and put in infrastructure for developers and like the harbor and others, because you know, Rick is right. If the harbor does not connect to the treatment plan, the Department of Health is going to, and EPA is going to require them to put their own waste treatment facility. Are they going to get into the wastewater business, or do they want to connect to our treatment plan and wash their hand off the O&M cost and the reporting and the monitoring and what have you, because they only about 7/10 a mile away. So we're working on that. We need to keep encouraging developers to work with us. And we could set up a system to allow for, like I said, the reimbursement and what have you. So
Elise Robinson.
Yeah, so Ramsey, is it the vision of the department to allow the homeowners to choose which system, if it's not a centralized system, which would work best for their property?
yeah, because the property owner will, let's say if you're in an area isolated outside the sewer service area, the centralized sewer area, like the Puna district, for example, any wastewater treatment plant, most of them either septic or cesspools. So if your cesspool goes out and you're ready to convert, you hire an engineer, they do permeability tests on your soil. That's number one. If you have the permeability and percolation rate required by Department of Health, then they design and size your leach field to allow you to put a conventional septic tank. At the shoreline, you're not going to have the option to put a septic tank. You have to use an aerobic treatment unit. So it's a site specific, it's based on your house location, how far is it from a stream or running water or groundwater. So all that need to be looked at by the engineer as they recommend to you what better system to use.
And okay, I had a question, incentives, and as a homeowner, what would make me want to take care of this today versus waiting? Like most people think the county will do something by 2050. And I think that's a big challenge for the community to pay for these systems. You know, when maybe possibly in 30 years, they might not be living there. So how do you think the best way to handle that would be to encourage change now?
Well, to encourage change, we're trying to do the point of sale of, you know, when somebody trying to sell their property, at least because people get in money. So at least since they receive in cash, that will put incentive for them to say, okay, now the best time, now I got cash in my pocket, let me change it. You know, and you know, the seller will end up paying for it. Because that's the opportunity for them to collect money. So the idea is, yes, how could you put incentive in cash to do it now? Now it's cheaper than wait till 30 years and try to compete with 55,000 cesspool conversion. So yeah, if you have the money, if you have the opportunity, do it now, cheaper. if you think you're not gonna live in the house for 30 years, by the time you sell it, you may be subject to replace it before you leave your house. So it's a risk, and that become, hopefully, once the report is completed, maybe this DOH will do public educations, and we'll start educating the public about, the options and the way they're trying to set incentive. I think there's one bill that was, I think it was passed, for cesspool HB 2195 to establish pilot grant project to assist low and moderate income property. So that's being worked on as we speak. So yeah, the State Department is working on certain things with the counties to allow, through the public outreach, to allow, educate the people. Yeah, you're not going to have an option. Eventually you're going to convert. You do it possibly maybe at the point of sale, but that didn't go legislation. But at least, yeah, if John Doe now is sitting in his house with a cesspool, they don't have the money, low income, the state could assist. But even if they not fit within the low moderate income, but they don't have the cash at hand, it's hard to, it's the human nature. They're going to wait till 2050 because you're right. They're going to say, I'm not going to be around in 30 years, or I may sell my house in 30 years. But yeah, it's, we got a 50 to deal with.
I'm going to throw it out there. Could there be a tax incentive? Could we
Well,
create
that was also looked at. Yeah, the $10,000 the state was talking about in a tax incentive way. So you could write off up to $10,000.
Is that a current bill being discussed, or?
That's our legislators. And, it's being recommended, but it's up to our elected official to take it on and make legislation out of it. So all we can do as a committee is recommend. Just like what you guys do, advice. So our role is the same as your role to the state, is give the state recommendation.
Rick Gaffney, did you have?
Yeah, the best example of the state being supportive of something that they want homeowners to do was providing the tax incentive for solar installations in homes. It worked well statewide, and it dramatically increased the number of people doing conversions now rather than later. I think, unfortunately, state legislators don't like to do anything that's going to cost tax revenues, because that's what they use to keep their constituents happy. But there's a really good example there that's worked, and I think that's something that the legislators really need to focus on, is a viable solution that has already worked in another way.
Questions for Ramsey about this cesspool conversion? I definitely recommend you to read through their agenda. If you go through their kind of backlog, but if you go through and look at their agendas kind of toward the bottom of their webpage, attached to them are the recommendations, and you can see how they're making changes. They're striking ones, they're adding in new ones, tend to be different color. So you can see the kinds of issues that they're going around, and then what is it that we as EMC would like to bring to Ramsey to push it. One area, for example, that I am wondering is, and I think it'll get rolled into our discussion about the wastewater management plan, is this service area concept, current wastewater treatment. And that's the problem where there's probably a bigger circle drawn for what constitutes the service area than we have built out for sewers. And how do we get from where we are now to where we ought to be, so that ideally all of our locations, our houses and businesses are treatment, whether it's private or public, that we're not relying on, certainly not cesspools, but even the basic septic tanks, I think, have some issues, as our former EMC chair constantly told us about. So it is very complex. It's a system with lots of individual parts, areas around the island, different issues. So I really appreciate the amount of time that Ramsey's spending on it, and would encourage you guys to look through and what kind of recommendations. I do want to pass on some good comments if you weren't online. When Elise was talking about the first report, basic report that the contractor did for the cesspool conversion project. Elise, you want to say that again to Ramsey?
Oh, I thought it was so well put together and well organized, very simple to, I mean, it's not simple concepts, but it was easier to read than others. And I really appreciated it all being in one place.
So thank you for that, Ramsey, and consider those guys. I forget who wrote it, worked on it, but they did a really nice job. John, did I see you have a comment?
No.
No, okay. All right, let's move on then from the cesspool conversion group.
Jean, could I request a short break?
You need a bio break? Okay. We'll do that, reconvene at 10:30, and we'll move into Ramsey's report. Like we've got. Okay, we're back online. We have quorum. Thank you, guys. Moving on to item Roman numeral 7, reports and correspondence. Are there any comments from the public on this section of the agenda? Not hearing anybody interested. Just want to make sure I'm checking. The first item is a legislative update, both with the county council and the state. And Ramsey did provide us with a written document. So if there's something you wanted to highlight, Ramsey, or if anybody had questions.
No, I just provided it as a FYI, so you guys could read it, see what's been going on from county council level to legislators level. So it kind of give you, we started with, God, Peter, what, 1,200 bills? And now you can see the amount of the bills that we just submitted. So it narrowed down and quite a bit. You know, when these legislative bills come on, the amount of them was so huge. And, you know, small percentage that makes it, so. So if you guys don't have any questions, we could move to the second item.
I guess I should ask, and I have to admit that it's not a personal issue for me, because fortunately I live on a a resort and we don't have a lot of abandoned vehicles, but do you have any general comment on the set of abandoned vehicle bills that got passed? Do you think it's going to make a big difference for us?
I think so. The one that passed where we could go after the car owner at the time that they their driver license, their impact, because now that would change the human. Because currently, if they to get rid of
Breaking up.
or move on to the main, is they take the car, they put it. So everybody could sell and become like a free parts, and they don't take responsibility. So hopefully, if you want to dispose, there is certain. I was listening. I think city and county, they have portable organizations that these cars, and maybe and give it to needy families and keep it on the right away for people to salvage. So yeah, I could, hopefully it works. I think it's gonna work because they're gonna get caught as they renew their driver license, and they're gonna get hit with the costs. So
Good. Cross fingers. And then the electronics bill, I assume, is going to take some rulemaking activity by DOH. But I don't know if Senna wanted to comment on how soon that is going to make an impact on our ability to recover electronic waste.
Yeah, my recollection is that they have, the manufacturers have to have a plan to DOH by October as far as how it's going to work. And then, or prior to that, I'm sorry about not, like I said, I'm just getting back to working part-time. And then from there, as of January 1, something will be put in place. So we'll know much more come in the fall after October, how it's going to affect us individually. Again, we're really, really excited about this, and optimistic as we are, as we have to be.
Okay. I've lost my agenda. Sorry. Moving on then to solid waste division projects and updates.
Georgine, I got a question.
Hand up, sorry.
Yeah, I have a question for the director. Anything from any council staff with regard to legislation on the enterprise fund?
no, I don't.
Okay.
I think the enterprise fund, just prior to the budget hearing, I was in communication with a few council members about the enterprise fund, but it goes again, it's a finance department in the funding for the entire county. And I believe, yeah, we as a department and other council members brought it up prior to the budget and last year, as you guys all aware of, but it's the finance department determining how the county budget and funding is established. So to their expertise, we recommended it. Council members recommended it, I believe, but it seemed like we're gonna continue being funded by general bonds and general funds.
Well, I have had a conversation with my councilman, Holeka, and he has met with Georgine and I, and Tim Richards, the chair of the council committee that's responsible for this. And Holeka indicate his willingness to move forward and try to pursue getting an enterprise fund passed at the council level. So that's the latest I've heard on the subject.
Yeah, I think it ought to go through the funding. It's not a DEM function, but definitely, yeah. Tim Richards, Heather, Inaba. I mean, we talked about it all year last year prior to the budget hearings and how we're going to establish it and what have you. I remember doing 2 presentations, and the funding was one of my challenges as a department, and it was high priority. But it goes again, for the capital improvement project or even funding for my department, it comes through a set procedures and process that the finance department controls, not my department. So, and that's probably true for every other department. So maybe maybe they could approach it through county council, through finance committee, what have you. But yeah, that's good to hear.
I'm not sure what value it would have for EMC to try to do more than we've done,
Yeah,
which is send the letter supporting the concept. But if you think there is a purpose to us moving on it, either Rick or Ramsey, let me know. We could see if we can set up an agenda with finance to come explain it to us.
Or get us something we can testify on at council.
yeah. I don't know the detail. The expert in the finance, we sent a letter last, right, Georgiana, or
Yeah.
early this. I know we've been working on it, but there's so much and
Well, let us know when, and Rick and I will with our that works on issues for and see if it makes sense. Anything else? Or you want to go through your list?
sure,
Okay.
definitely solid waste. Do we have any of is my Kahan online? I guess. Beater, is any of the division staff online for solid waste? Or should I will send them. Just send it, okay. So I'll move on. Solid waste. Definitely, as far as the division chief, just to give you an idea, we've given an offer to a great potential candidate. Hopefully, this candidate will take it on. Prior candidate, after the offer they declined, but so that's a good news about the chief position. So he's going to fly to the island. We're going to meet with him on August, sometime the second week in August. So hopefully he comes in with a great experience, and we'll keep you guys appraised and updated on that. As far as the trailers into solid waste transfer station, We in the process, we met with staff, the budget is approved with the ideas, now we could tap into some of the funding to be able to review the 2 prior safety reports that they were done by independent parties and give it to a traffic engineer that could do the maneuvering and figure out what sites that could be adequate and what do we need to do from signage and striping and etc. So the idea is, yes, Lee, we could do it in-house, but it's not recommended to do it in-house. This is, you already got 2 reports telling us that for safety issues, that's why they did what they did. So the idea now is, get a traffic engineer that knows circulation that could recommend how to go about signage and striping, and should we close the facility for cars, just allow trailers only, et cetera, et cetera. So all that, but most of our design criteria for him is going to be around the 7 days facilities within the island. How could we provide trailer services to these locations with the 7 days a week facilities? Try to come in without trying to back up to the chute, because we're not going to go through that, because that was what addressed in the safety prior to safety report. So we're trying to avoid maneuvering and backing into the chute to allow for a smooth transaction if we're going to have a mixed usage between cars and trailers. So they're going to be given these criteria to be able to lay it out and run their models. The reason 6x9 was used, Lee, just to let you know that we're looking at 3 cubic yard volume. And because that's the amount you're supposed to be taking, because people, when they bring big trailers, they exceed the 3 cubic yard, and we cannot keep chasing people. So the idea is 6x9 gives you 3 cubic yard. So our guys don't have to stop measuring, the waste, because we don't have scales. So, and that's how they determine the 6x9 size. It's just to maintain it to the 3 cubic yard limit. So 6x9, you mentioned 10x5, that's 50 square foot versus 54 square foot. That technically, potentially may be below the 3 cubic yard. But we're trying to make it easy for our attendants, the Swiffer at the transfer station, because they don't have the tools and the scales and what have you. But that's maybe, yeah. And they don't have a measuring tape to start measuring each trailer that comes in. But the main goal is just stay within 3 cubic yard with a reasonable trailer that was tested. The prior reports, as you guys recall, hooked up that trailer into the back of a truck, and they went to each transfer station and they did the maneuvering and the backing, and that's why they figured that was the adequate size. But anyway, hopefully our traffic circulation engineer could do more computer modeling to figure out what would it take just to bring these 7 days aside back to trailer services. And our intent is probably not every day, just maybe 2 days within the week. That will be addressed. So we're working on it as far as that goes. The Glenwood transfer station, you guys all know that we have a big tree that fallen into the structure and we have to close it temporarily. So we have the structure engineer went up there, did assessment. They said we need to take that portion that was damaged out, dismantle it, and reopen the station. So staff working on that. So sometimes in early August, that station will reopen back to the public. As far as, other, I know, there's other studies that being done and talked about, decentralized combos that staff are working on, and it seemed like R&D is also looking at how could we provide more soil and compost to everybody within the island at an easy access. So that also has been working on and trying to, allow that to each district rather than centralize it and deal with the transportation of such material that compost become an option.
Mhm.
So that went on. You guys probably heard about the fire we had this weekend at early this week at the organic West Hawaii organic facility. We had a spontaneous combustion through one of the mulch load that the HER had at the site. So our staff worked diligently over the weekend and through this week with HER to control the fire. The fire department was on site. They were able to control it. And our goal and intent to open back to the public for mulch tomorrow. So we should be putting, I think I saw our PIO just put a press release to reopen that facility by tomorrow. So as that's from solid waste. Ocean View facility is gonna get some recycling bins assigned to that facility to assist into the white goods, scrap metals, cardboard, and glass. So we're in the process of finalizing that for that particular transfer station. The Gila facility, one of our scales went down, so we're running on one scale. We're trying to work with procurement, trying to bring that scale back up and running. Waihino construction is moving forward pretty good. Our anticipated date is still the end of this year. We should complete construction at that facility. And that also become a 7 days facility. As you guys know, it went through county council during the budget hearing, and it was approved for 7 days operation at that facility. So that's as far as solid waste. If you guys have any question on solid waste, I'll be more than happy to entertain. If not, I can move forward to the wastewater.
Just a question. Has anybody approached you about building a new facility in Hawaiian Paradise Park?
No. What type of facility? Are you talking about transfer station?
Yeah.
No.
Well, there may be something coming your way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna go through the process, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully with the new chief coming on board, my first task to him is to evaluate. We've been so swamped. I've been wearing so many hats, me and Brenda, but it's hard to find staff. It's hard to hire. You guys are all aware that recruitment is just hard to fill any position.
I know you're wasting at least 2 or 3 hours a day eating and sleeping.
Yeah, right, John. You mean lack of sleep? Yeah.
You just got to wrap it up,
I didn't know that I signed up for that big of a challenge. I should have had second thoughts, but
Be kind. Okay, yeah, why don't you move on to the wastewater side of things? Senna, you want to pipe up with something?
Yeah, just to add a couple of things with recycling, the waste diversion program. To update you, one, the LCA is still on track. We're just getting the final data input and it's still set to come out September. Household hazardous waste collection events coming up Saturday, August 6th in Hilo at Waikea High School. And Saturday, August 20th at the West Hawaii Civic Center parking lot. Information on our website, of course. We finally had, I don't know if you've seen it, through a couple of years stops and starts, but we finally have implemented the food waste reduction campaign we started. It's a public information campaign. With our limited funds, we were able to put that out just as far as the importance of food waste reduction at home and its impact on climate change and how everyone can make a difference in doing that. So we're excited to finally get that done. I think Ramsey mentioned about at Ocean View, we're looking at that. If things are moving along with all of our high five, there's a few hiccups, but again, staffing issues have just caused, our recyclers, our vendors, they just can't get staff. So we've had to have little openings and closures where it's just the way that it is. So we're doing the best that we can with the vendors. On a exciting note is that I've been talking about the EPA recycling as infrastructure. The grants coming out in the fall. EPA we just recently submitted, when I say is with the county and then working with Zero Waste Hawaii Island and other recyclers on the island, nonprofits, community members. We just put together a survey of stakeholders, got responses from about 75, 76 respondents. And then from those respondents of stakeholders put together and responded to the EPA's request for information that just was submitted on Monday. So really, I'm really proud of all the team because I've been out of commission for the last month almost. A lot of work was put into it. And if anyone's interested in the document, I'd be happy to send it to you. Kind of gives an overview of what the respondents, what was important to them and different concerns and a lot of thoughts and ideas. So that went to them. And then again, we are looking for the RFPs to come out from the EPA in, I believe September is what they've been telling us. So anyway, that's that. I just wanted to share some good news. So
Thanks.
thanks.
Just to make sure, enforce what Senna has talked about, the hazard waste collection, please put the word out. We're gonna put a press release as well. This is your opportunity to let people know. I know, Rick, last time when we had the program, a lot of people were concerned as what we're gonna do with batteries, paint, and what have you. And just the day after our collection event. So please put the word out if you know somebody want to get rid of hazard waste. At least we got 2 events coming up, one on the east side and one on the west side. We're going to inform council members as well so they could put it on their website to advertise it as well. So we could maximize that collection event. So yeah, so that's a good one. As far as vendors finding staff, that's one of the reasons that Volcano High Five class, we negotiated the contract with Atlas because we put the contract out, nobody bid it because they cannot find staff to work and they don't want to do it on Saturdays. So we were with them extended for, and we're going to put it out. They're going to rebid it with the service being provided on Thursdays, not Saturdays. So we may see, we're trying to keep the same level of services from our vendors, but they have a hard time finding stuff. It's funny, I was driving through Taco Bell last weekend and they closed the drive-through because they cannot find staff either. So you have to park your car, go inside the restaurant. So there is shortage in staff countywide and all. And so
Okay, want to move to wastewater? Also note that Haleka Naba has joined us because he's interested in the wastewater management plan effort. So on to wastewater.
Aloha, Council Member Inaba.
Aloha, Commissioners. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, the wastewater division update. The good news is the number one is we just signed a new AOC with EPA for the Ka'ua district, the Pahala Na'alehu, to reconsider the wastewater options to packaged treatment unit, which that's what we started with when we first took over the administration. Our goal, the aerated lagoon and the $400,000 per connection was unacceptable. So it took us a year to work with EPA, and finally, I want to thank EPA and their staff for their effort to work with us and make it happen. So now hopefully we could look at more reasonable options to provide services to the Ka'u district, which is the Pahala Na'alehu. It's so we have EPA had posted that on their website as well. So the idea is to look at an individual waste treatment system versus packaged units. And that's what we're going to do for these two communities. It's going to have a lot of cost saving with it that comes with these new options. So it's kudos to everyone that assisted us on making that happen. And definitely Sandra from Na'alehu, she played a major role in working with us, and I appreciate her involvement. We listened to her good comments as and at least now I hope the communities, we're going to have more community meetings, and we had one prior to the AOC issuance, and it was good. And hopefully now we're on the right track with the communities and what they wanted to see. So that's a good news. As far as
I personally congratulate you. That is a major win to be able to get EPA to back off and reconsider what's really going to be practical for us. So mahalo, mahalo.
thank you, Georgiana. We had a few public meeting at the Puna district. As you all know, Pahoa and Puna district got some money last year, grants through the EDA. John was there, and we had 2 meetings to give updates. We have upcoming meeting in October, public meeting with the community about the options. So we had ACOM is doing, we could call it a master plan for that district. That's going to look at the option, how we're going to service that area, or is it possible to service that area given living on a rock?
Challenge.
Of a future around. So they look from a zoning evaluation to ability of is it to put a waste that district, because it is the fast commercial, and we need to start planning. You know, would it be a centralized waste treatment, centralized system by the developers and what have you, or connecting to Gila? We have multiple options looking into to create that east side master plan for these districts. So that's it's being worked on. The Gila treatment plan, we met with the consultant yesterday, and we gonna have 50% design complete comes August. So as you guys are aware, Gila's gonna require new construction for the headworks and digesters and looking at the secondary treatment options and what have you. So that's already been rolling. Phase 1 is out to bid by January 2023. We should be able to start construction given that we can secure the funding. And hopefully, as you all know, inflation is going crazy currently. The construction market is way up there. So I hope it settles by the end of the year. If it's not, it may come at a higher cost than what we anticipated. So we're gonna relook at that and figure out we have to do something. So let's keep our finger crossed. Hopefully the cost comes within budget so we can move forward. And Hilo brings its own challenges. We're working with civil defense, trying to figure a way, emergency planning in case if we get catastrophic failure at the headwork or the pool force main, because these are the two main points of failure. If any of these points fail, it could become catastrophic for the Hilo area. So we're working on setting up plans and response plans with civil defense as we speak. As far as local wider master plan, I'll call it the northwestern side of the island. So we all come to do the master plan for that district as well, to look at how we're going to service Pouco and other subdivisions that potentially may come up within that area, all the way to Waikalua Village, because Waikalua Village currently is being serviced by Hawaii Water. We got American Water in Waimea. So we're trying to capture, and you got resorts that already have their own treatment plan. So how could we together and be able to provide services to these communities within that service areas, since we have multiple private wastewater entities that could easily provide such service without going through the entire county creating a centralized treatment plant for that area, because Kalakaua does not extend that far. So, and there's no way that could extend that far. So we're working on that master plan. So that's moving. I believe we got notice to proceed. So we're going to work with the communities in that area and set up meetings. So Kalakaua treatment plan, we have a consultant on board now, looking at the headwork and the odor control. RM Towels, our consultant, they laying out the design plan for that. The west side, we have also the sand filters that we got donated to us from Hawaii Water. We got an engineering partner and are working on laying out the design plans on where it's going to be located, how we're going to hook it up, and how we're going to change the process, hopefully to start filtering. But we're going to go through Department of Health, and there's the possibility that may require environmental assessment as well, which kind of linked to the R1 project that crossed the street from the treatment plan, because we had a meeting with Shibti and we had a major discussion, and the idea we need to continue meeting with them bi-weekly so we could keep getting updates on the R1 EA that was submitted, AIS that was submitted. It wasn't EA, it was AIS. So definitely all that moving forward. The challenges, like Rick has mentioned, is it gets more complicated because you got, the people that, want to preserve everything, and you have the other side, the people want to move with the R1. And so I don't know how that's going to work out. It's beyond my control, beyond, I think, everybody's control. It's more of it. It's how Shifty is going to be able to navigate through that archaeological findings. So we'll let that play its role and see what comes out of it, so we could start planning forward. And you got the Kona North pump station that also is tied up in the same process with the AIS process, and our consultant is working with them and trying to answer a question that we received from Shifty on the archaeological findings. So that's moving forward as well. So we got so many balls in the air with no staff. Hopefully we could recruit. Please, if you guys know engineers out there looking to join our forces, put the word out on the west side. It feels like it's always harder to recruit on the west side than the east side, but definitely I'd like to start recruiting on the west side as well, so we could get the assistance we need to get these projects moving. But at no time any of these projects was held up, so we moving forward, full commitment. Rick knows that we're going to support his move with the harbor sewering projects. We're going to move forward with the North Kona pump station. Definitely, the more we sewer, the better we are from environmental point of view. We have a treatment facility. Sometimes when you drive down the highway, Queen K Highway, and you just look the Mocha sides and you see the lights at night, and the only thing that comes to mind, $, connection. We're missing so many opportunity to connect all these developments into our treatment plant, but yet it's unfortunate they're all in cesspool and septic. But maybe we'll get there one day. Rome was not built in one day, but hopefully if we set up the right strategy, hopefully the people after us, they could take the torch and move forward with it. I know I mentioned earlier the 2006 master plan for the Kailua Kona. I think we need to dust that off and maybe give it to a consultant and get it updated. If we do that, then now I got the Kailua Kona master plan, I got the east side master plan, I got the northwestern side of the island master plan. Then we could bring them together to create what we call a countywide integrated waste management plan. So that's the goal and intent. Is going to be in pieces, but we navigating through it and we moving forward and achieving it. With that, I'll take any questions if you guys have them.
Well, I mean, have you seen the Pahoa master plan?
Well, that one I have not seen, but we have the consultant it's a feasibility study that we got the funding for. They're gonna take whatever we have and see if even that area is feasible.
Well, I mean, speaking to the feasibility issue, one of the things was important in getting into the Pahoa plan was the fact that all of the infrastructure will be outside of hazard zones 1 and 2. So that basically the new Pahoa will be in a safer location as it's developed on the north side of Kahakai.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're looking into, and I think I looked at that zone 2 still a question mark, but I think you're right. I mean, that's what the consultant is going to be doing. We're going to have public meetings as well. So
Yeah, I mean,
that is
nobody-
moving forward.
yeah, nobody's pushing for further development in the hazard zones. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll maintain what we have while we have it. But the new PAHOA basically is gonna have to be to the north. And of course, you've got all that state land there to work with. So it isn't like we're gonna have to go out and purchase anything.
That's true.
Yep.
Let's yeah, you're right. I'm looking forward to working with the community and the consultant to figure out how we can navigate that.
Yeah, we Main Street.
John, and I know you're gonna be very important participant into the process because you bring so much institutional knowledge to the whole area. So I look forward to working with you as well.
Well, keep in mind, my warranty is void.
Maybe we could work on renewing it for you.
That's a ship that sailed.
So I understand, Ramsey, what you've got, and forgive the terminology, but you kind of have several different mini masters scattered around the island. Not total coverage yet, but close. And the question is, from where we were coming from in recommending a countywide master plan, which I was really happy to see was also in the cesspool conversion work group. How are you going to put them all together? How much money do you have? Have you started doing that? What is it going to take to really kind of integrate it? I mean, one of the frustrations I think we had was that you're doing these by section, but not necessarily with an overview framework of how they should fit together. What are the basic goals you're trying to meet? What are the standard? Be evaluating feasibility and how to approach it and what we really need island-wide to manage our wastewater.
Yeah, then, we had to do what we are doing currently because each district is being funded through either grants or some type of legislative funding. So you cannot take that money and apply it countywide. In the district is that money that point grant. That was, we cannot say, well, let's integrated waste management plan because from a financial point of view, it was dedicated to. That's true for Polk. There was legislation. David Tarnas to $1.6 million money has to cover, and we cannot just do a study for vision because we have to area, and that's about, we need to have more comprehensive, that's why we expanded it, include inside of the island, because just for that particular study. Unfortunately, the county doesn't have that much money to set aside to do countywide integrated. We tried last 2 budget years, but this budget year, at least they gave us $500,000, which it's not going to do much, but hopefully my plan is to use that $500,000 to collect all the other pieces to see if any consultant maybe could be able to do it with that much money. We don't know until we put it out and start talking to consultants. So the goal is once we finish these dedicated funding to these master plans, mini master plans, then we could
evaluate it better of, okay, is the 500,000 adequate, or, how much a consultant, because think about it. The Puna district is costing us almost $2.3 million between Pahala and Puna district. And Pooka is about $1.8 million. And we only get budget because, like I said, we've been asking to do that, but we got lucky this year. At least we got 500,000. So the 500,000 could either update the Kailua Kona master plan. So that way we'll have a complete updated to date east, northwestern, and Kailua Kona treatment plan with the idea of Pahala and Na'alehu as well. See, so that way, if you put all these pieces together, we may be able to integrate and become our integrated countywide. But unfortunately, we don't have that much money just to say, okay, let's do a countywide, because every district, they're fighting for their own money and they're bringing their own money into the equation to do their own study. Hopefully that answered your question, Georgia.
Yeah, you don't have enough money. I guess questions from the other commissioners or Councilman Inaba? You're still on? Lee McIntosh.
I just had a question for Na'alehu and Pahala. If the county installs the individual septic tanks or whatever they go with for each house, how will the county handle anyone who like refuses to go along with it, or say it's like an abandoned property? How will that be handled? Have you thought that far ahead?
Yeah, it's a federal order, so we have to. Yeah, everybody will be forced to convert. They'll our legal department with EBA legal department will be dealing with the individual. It's a federal order that we have to comply with. So if people decide, say, well, I'm not going to connect, we're going to end up red tag the house because there's going to be non-compliance, or go to court. And the idea is we put in the money and the cost. So for them to say, well, I'm not going to connect, there's no money out of their pocket. So they've been fortunate that it's not like the other 55,000 cesspool we talked about earlier. These two communities, the counties for their sewer connection, either through IWS or package unit. If it's abandoned home and nobody lives in it, the sewer connection is still going to be made because that property needs to receive connection sewer service. And we're talking about the properties being identified within the AOC. So we're not going to go outside that AOC.
Yep.
Other questions, comments? It's again, I would go back to the outline, which I reemphasize should be considered a working draft of what we would like to see covered in a master waste. I would hope that as you do these mini masters, that those considerations are covered as you're doing the individual plans. But maybe the most important part is a clear statement of what our ultimate vision and goals are. and how your mini master feeds back and at least approaches meeting those ultimate goals we're trying to get to, i.e. safe environmental management of wastewater. Rick, I don't know if you wanted to have any comment about the work we've done.
No, clearly we have more work to do because the conversation needs to, but I'm looking forward to working with Councilman Inaba and his bringing the finance department in as well with the money, as well as the people that are concerned about the environmental impact.
And I think, it's trying to figure out when the balance is that we would like to have an opportunity to have input on these plans before they're nailed down and not ever revised again, just to see whether we think that you're organizing it and you're thinking of it in the terms, the key components that we had identified that I think should be in a master plan, and where the holes are and where we may need to press for more legislation or policy changes. So think about, when do you share? And when do you have questions for us as a commission on which direction should you go in looking at these individual mini masters? Anything else? Is there anything else you would like to share with?
Yeah, I just want to really kudos to Mayor Roth administration that put the wastewater as one of his top priority. And I think, to be honest with you, we have accomplished within this 1.5 year things that has not been accomplished for the last 20, 30 years. Just looking at trying to get things under control and yet be able to, get the new AAC going, get, the HELO plan at 50%, get Pabico sewer project completed, get all these consultants on board and work on the projects that we need to get moving. Kudos to staff and to the mayor's administration for allowing us to seriously take that as a high priority, because it is important. It's not easy to appreciate things underground than appreciate parks and highways and bridges. People get visualize it, but sometimes when you deal with sewer, it's under the roadway, so people don't see the value of it. But environmentally, it has a high value. And we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. And thank you all for supporting our mission and goals, and for the last year of pushing council members and writing letters and what have you. And think as one force, we're going to achieve a lot moving forward. And hopefully we could set up the ground and the foundation for the future administration to follow suit as we hopefully land, continue working with EPA and Department of Health on how we could establish that moving forward.
I would definitely agree with you. You've made tremendous progress over the unfortunate stagnation we've had on this island for a long, long time. So I just am awed by your ability to herd all the cats and make some progress for us. Any other comments?
Here.
Okay, I think that wraps it with Ramsey. Future agenda items are item Roman numeral 8. Got a couple follow-up items I'll be talking with John about. And I'm brain dead on one other, there were other items, but I'll go back through. Fortunately, Peter Sir makes the most fabulous minutes that can be. And I will urge our missing members to sit through the whole recording so that they can catch up. Thanks again to everybody. If there are issues you want to bring up for next time, just let me know. I'll get them on the agenda. As I said, I encourage you to read the information on the cesspool conversion group site. I think it's really good information. And I need to chase down myself and look at DEM site, the Hawaii Zero Waste .org site, and see what the new thing on food waste is. I admit I haven't seen that yet. So just keep aware and know what it is we should tackle next. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 24th. It would be at the Civic Center, West Hawaii. Assuming you want to meet together in person, or we will continue to offer the meetings as Zoom. Just make COVID go away so we can get together. I think we could do more if we're there as a group, but unfortunately there are issues. So are we ready? Someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll do that in 1 second, but
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if either Peter or Ramsey can put that 2006 county service area document up where we can find it so we can get access to it. And then I move we adjourn.
Okay. I think we're also due a description of the AECOM scope of work. Just so we get again a feel for how you're tackling these mini masters, and especially if they're going to have a role in pulling them together in an overall master plan. So Peter can get that out to all the members. So thank you, Rick. And I heard several offers for adjournment from Rick and from John Olson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aloha. Thank you very much, everybody.